Morning. Welcome back to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for June 11th, 2024. If you are able, will you please rise for Pledge of Allegiance? Stop. Will you lead us this morning?
Thank you, Chair Gary. Ready to begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We will begin with reporting out on closed session.
Item 1, pursuant to Government Code 54956.8, conference with real property negotiator Marcos Munoz, potential purchase price and terms of payment for APN 042-033-014, negotiating party, Century 21 Sierra Properties, Jesse Rena Gibbs. Board action, no reportable action taken. Item 2, pursuant to Government Code 54957.3, conference of county designated labor negotiators Teresa Hitchcock, Marcos Munoz, and Judy Hawkins regarding the following employee organizations: Service Employees International Union Local 1021, Sheriff Management Unit, Calaveras County Public Safety Employees Association, Deputy Sheriff's Association, Calaveras Management Union, Calaveras Supervisors Union, Unrepresented Employees, Board action, no reportable action taken. Item 3, pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, Conference Legal Counsel, re-anticipated litigation, 1 case, significant exposure to litigation was removed from the closed session. No board action was discussed.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to staff announcements. Lisa?
For supervisors and everyone else, Lisa Medina, Environmental Management Agency. June 1st was the first ever California Adopt a Pet Day. Calaveras Animal Services held a free adoption event, and we adopted 3 animals, including one of our rabbits. Please take a peek at our Facebook and Calaveras Access TV for future adoption events. We anticipate having monthly events if at all possible. This past weekend, Focus had another successful rabies and microchip clinic with over 123 rabies vaccines and 60 microchips given for free to our Calaveras animals in their community. Thank you, Dr. Julie Clements, our Focus members and volunteers, for donating your time for this special free event. Our next event will not be until September 14th due to the expected heat and weather. We are always looking for volunteers to help us out, as we cannot maintain operations without them. If you are interested in volunteering, we are always looking for caring, thoughtful humans that can help us out with duties, including walking our pups, nurturing and socializing all our animals under our care, cleaning cages, litter boxes, water dishes, participating in special events, both on-site and off-site, helping promote adoption of our shelter animals by acting as ambassadors and spreading the mission of Calaveras Animal Services. Our dog volunteers gave 684 hours of their precious time in May, and our cat volunteers gave a couple hundred hours as well. Thank you again, Focus, for going in halvesies with our new washing machine, which we desperately needed. Focus does so much for our animal services, including our rabies and microchip clinics, medical and adoption support, spay and neuter program, direct shelter transfers, shelter enhancements, and community education. Thank you again, Focus, and our community volunteers. We will be having a Focus and volunteer appreciation event, probably breakfast, soon, and we are looking forward to asking them for their further assistance as we move forward in our future, and we cannot do our animal shelter operations without them and our volunteers.
Thank you. The other staff announcements in the room. Peter, come on down.
Good morning, Peter Maurer, Interim Planning Director. Just wanted to let you all know, I sent an email out last week that the Planning Commission has forwarded on the draft zoning code update to you for your action. We're looking at trying to schedule a special hearing. I've heard back from 4 of you. Ben, I hope you're available on July 16th for a special hearing to consider adoption of the revised ordinance. So Ben, if you can get back to me when you can. Great. Okay, great. So we'll plan to schedule that. Then we're working with the board clerk to get that special hearing scheduled on July 16th, Tuesday.
Thank you, and congratulations. That was a
Thank-
big piece of work, and we look forward to taking on as a board. Other staff announcements? Are there any online?
We do not have any online.
Very well, we'll move on to recognition and acknowledgements. Item number 4.
Item 4, Proclamation Health and Human Services Agency adopt a proclamation recognizing June 2024 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Month in Calaveras County.
Thank you. I'll pass the gavel to Supervisor Hubbard.
Thank you, Chair. Whereas World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, a significant global event, was initiated on June 15th, 2006 by the International Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse and the World Health Organization at the United Nations, marking a crucial step in our collective efforts to combat elder abuse. And whereas 2024 signifies the 18th annual World Elder Abuse Awareness celebrated. And whereas the elderly population of Calaveras County, cherished members of our community, are the focus of our unwavering commitment to ensure their safety and autonomy, allowing them to live their lives to the fullest. And whereas Calaveras County continues to serve the elderly population by providing services and support to contribute to living their lives, and in addition, advocates for prevention resources. And whereas in California, there have been more than 202,589 elder abuse cases each year, which equates to approximately 15,000 reports per month and increasing. It is projected that by 2060, the elderly population in Calaveras County will increase to 52.15%, doubling the current population. And whereas Calaveras County recognizes with these statistics that the diligent work to protect, empower, and advocate for the older adults in our community needs to continue. And whereas Calaveras County is striving to support and enrich the lives of elder adults residing in our community to ensure that they all have the opportunity to live free of abuse and/or neglect while promoting healthier lives. And whereas World Elder Abuse Awareness Month is an opportunity for Calaveras County to promote a better understanding of abuse and neglect of our older adults by being a voice for each person through the community awareness. And with that, is there any public comment? It's clear.
System.
Yeah, I was like, it's going. Good morning, Susan Gleason, Program Manager. Good morning, Chair Garamendi, members of the board. Susan Gleason, Program Manager for the Adult Services team. Thank you for this proclamation. What I really want to recognize is my team here for the work that they do every single day. If it's not the IHSS, APS, social workers, public guardian, veterans, public authority, senior peer, all of our support staff that help us every single day to mitigate abuse, assist those in our communities, provide resources. And not only our team, but all of our agency partners, community partners. We work with VMRC, we work with law enforcement, mental health, the hospital, the animal services is here, we work with them. So, I just want to say thank you to everybody. This takes a lot of communication and collaboration to mitigate abuse, to assist our community, provide resources. So thank you guys for showing up every single day here in Calaveras County and doing what you can to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Is there any comment online?
We have no online comments.
Thank you. I'll bring it back to the board. I'll look for a motion.
I'll move this item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Calaveras hereby proclaims June 2024 as World Elder Abuse Awareness Month in Calaveras County.
We're gonna do that tomorrow night. Take one of them. We didn't want to play out here.
Okay. Martin's over
Martin, we should be in the hell there with this. Put our more senior members in 20%.
There you go.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. And 1 more. Perfect. Thank you. Just push.
One and done.
Thank you all very much. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda.
General.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you. Public comment. If everybody's going to have 3 minutes, we're going to cut you off at 3 minutes. If it's on an item that's related to the rest of the agenda, I will ask you to stop and bring back your comments for that agenda item. Everybody good? Lieutenant, you get to start us off.
Someone calls to the commander of the Calvert County office.
When the sheriff introduced me last month, I wanted to come back and report on kind of the state of the affairs of our area and what's going on with traffic in Calaveras County. Last year, our office received a grant for 1,500 additional man hours for us to go out and enforce, focus on primary collision factors. What's cool is when you get that grant is to see the fruits of the labor the next year. And so now we've had an opportunity. So what I do is I wanted to compare our stats from January 1st of this year till year to date today versus the same period last year. After that grants, we've expended that grant, been out in the community working. So it's really cool to see the difference that's happened. And this is the thing that I'm most proud of for my team is our DUI collisions have gone down 11% this year compared to last year. But the most important one, and our main one, is to save lives, reduce the mileage death rate. Fatal collisions have gone down 66%. We've had 2 fatal collisions this year versus 6 to year to date. Small community, we typically average anywhere from 15 to 17 in our office. So we're trending really well this year. To have 2 and we're halfway through the year is, I'm very proud of my team for that. But I think that grant was huge. Injury collisions, this is another big one. We're down 20% in injury collisions year to date versus last year as well. So our total collisions overall, that includes property damage, we're down 5%. Not a staggering number, but still it's a good number. Something that's kind of interesting, our DUI arrests for the year are up 18% and our total overall arrests are up over 26%. So the guys are out there, men and women out there working hard. The last thing I have is my staffing level is just got bumped up to 90%. So I only have a 2% vacant, 2 officers vacancy right now. I'm getting a officer that's returning that worked for a number of years. He's coming back to the office in July. He'll be my senior officer. And then I'm also getting a cadet. It's been 16 years since we've gotten a cadet in Calaveras County. So we'll train them. They go through 3 phases of training. We'll train them 2 up here to learn the area, but for them to go get some more experience, we're going to send them down to Stockton and let them have some fun down there. And I hope they don't quit, and I hope they come back. So overall, we're doing the team's doing a really good job. It's just really nice to see that fatal collision picture down so low and our collisions down, and especially our DUI collisions and everything, because a lot of these DUI collisions do lead to fatal collisions. So it's a testament to that grant, and our team went out and used all 1,500 extra hours last year. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate
All right,
it.
if you ever need me, just let me know.
It's always fun watching the Board of Supervisors all knock on wood.
I know, it's like I wanted to do it right there, yeah. So hopefully today goes smooth.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
thanks, you guys. Have a good day.
Appreciate it. Other public comments in the room? Seeing none, are there any on, I'm sorry, is this related to an item on the agenda going forward, or is this related to something?
General
not on
public
the-
comments?
Pardon?
General public,
General public comments,
general public comment.
general public.
Thank you very much. My name's Christopher Butner. On May 28th, at the most recent Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting, Martin Huberty-led Calaveras Visitors Bureau delivered a shoddy and disrespectful presentation to Calaveras County government that demands further explanation and remedy. Why was the Huberty-led Calaveras Visitors Bureau represented at that meeting by a county employee, specifically the county's appointed representative and liaison on the Calaveras Visitors Bureau's Board of Directors? Why did the Huberty-led Calaveras Visitors Bureau fail to have in attendance one or more representatives of the Calaveras Visitors Bureau Board of Directors or one of Hubbard's staff members, presumably capable of knowingly reviewing the budget with the Board of Supervisors and CEO. Does the county's appointed representative and liaison on the Calaveras Visitors Bureau Board of Directors understand that she's representing and serving as the willing mouthpiece for an outlaw business bureau that has been intentionally and fraudulently misrepresenting to the government and to the public the legal status of its California nonprofit corporation type since July 2021? Do any of you understand that the TOT funding provided by the Calaveras government to the Hubbard-led Calaveras Visitors Bureau belongs to its members now? Do any of you understand that there are legal differences between a public benefit nonprofit corporation and a mutual benefit nonprofit corporation? It appears not. Do any of you understand the legal ramifications of the Hubbard-led Calaveras Visitors Bureau continuing to fraudulently display bylaws on its website that have been expired for 3 years while the county knowingly continues to fund that fraudulent activity? You've all known since August 2023 that the Hubbard-led Calaveras Visitors Bureau is misrepresenting the legal status of its California nonprofit corporation type since July 2021, yet entered into a 4-year contract despite that glaring fact. The Calaveras Visitors Bureau bylaws published on gocalaveras.com deceive and fraudulently misrepresent the legal status of the Calaveras Visitors Bureau nonprofit corporation type to the public at large for nearly 3 years now, on Calaveras County District 3 Supervisor Martin Hubbard's watch as the conflicted executive director of an outlaw business bureau operating largely on public funds. Martin, it is long past time for you to resign as the executive director of the Calaveras Business Bureau due to your pattern of breach of fiduciary responsibilities. Focus your dwindling time as Calaveras County District 3 Supervisor, performing the job that you were elected and are paid to do. My name is Christopher Butner, publisher of Calaveras2024election.com.
Thank you. Other public comment? Russ? No? Anyway,
All right, late. My name is Russ Lenhart. I'm a licensed land surveyor. I practice in Calaveras County. I'm kind of pressed to push this to a sort of a conclusion today. I've got time and circumstance that have caused some real serious problems that are caused by this issue that I'm bringing up. Okay, we've gotten to the point where we understand that a surveyor is different than any other profession in the state. Surveyors are responsible for representing boundary either on the ground or in the public record. That's our exclusive proviso. There is no one else in the state that can do that. The GIS system is not boundary. GIS system is based on the assessor maps. Any use of the GIS system, and it's been proven in a recent Supreme Court case in the state of California, it's illegal. That's every single depiction of boundary using GIS is illegal. That's being done by everyone in the county, whether it's the code compliance people, whether it was the plan drawings for the pot farms, whether it was the engineers evaluating a building plan or a setback plan on a septic system. Those are all being done using illegal boundary. It's not because of money that a surveyor is in charge of that. It's because it's the duty to protect the public record. The county surveyor's position is at the same level as the county sheriff, as is the county recorder. And that three-person level of government is to protect the public record, the laws and the citizens and property rights, and the property itself, land law. Those three people work together to enforce land law in the state of California. Throughout the state, the appointment of a county surveyor does not divest the county of that responsibility. It doesn't mean that that responsibility disappears. It can't be selected in different departments and you have certain responsibilities delegated to, say, the planning department or the GIS department to do something like determine boundary or legal access. Those are all the duties of a single person at the county surveyor, unless he has deputized somebody. And that means that they've sworn an oath to him to do what he knows is best, and he's in responsible charge of that person. They can't make determinations of legal access, which they're doing all over the county right now. GIS is doing that in order to decide whether someone has an address, a physical address, so that they can then get a building permit. So these are all practices that are being delegated out to people in the county that are exclusively under only one person's jurisdiction. And that's illegal. And it's been proven in the state in a Supreme Court case. I asked you to come and talk to me about this, but now it's gone too far. And CAL FIRE has committed fraud, and the BLM has committed fraud, and you guys are committing fraud. I'm
Thank
done.
you. Other public comments in the room? See no further public comment. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request the removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Thank you. Any board members have items they'd like to pull from the agenda? Anyone? The members of the public that would like to pull an item from the consent agenda? Online.
There are no online requests.
Very well. Seeing nothing being pulled from the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Stoppers, a second.
I'll second.
Second by Supervisor Hubbard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you. We'll move on to number 23.
Item 23, ordinance agricultural. 1, conduct a public hearing. 2, adopt an ordinance amending Calaveras County Code Chapter 3.50 to update annual device registration fees for commercial weighing and measuring device consistent with California Business Code and Professionals Code, Section 12240, and authorized summary publication.
Thank you. I am opening a public hearing. Jesse.
Good morning, Chair Garamendi, honorable members of the board, Jesse Fowler, Agriculture Commissioner, Director of Weights and Measures. I'm just here to answer any questions.
Any questions? On this item, board? All right. Are there questions from the comments from the public? Any online?
We have no online.
I am closing public hearing, bringing this back to the board for approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Stoppers, or second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Fallendorf. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you. On to item 24.
It's a lot of work, Jesse. Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 24, informational item, administrative office, receive a presentation from Lenicus on the Phase 2 agricultural and engineering services for schematic design and the district attorney building.
Thank you. Do we need a couple minutes to set up?
I have the presentation available to share right now if the presenters are available.
Why don't you come on up, present?
Okay, great.
Morning, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning. So the intent of our presentation this morning is to bring the board up to speed on the design of the district attorney's office and the progress we've made thus far. So I want to spend a couple of minutes reviewing what we talked about at our last meeting at the programming review, and then talk a little bit about where we've come since then through the schematic design process, and provide a budget update and where we want to go from here. So you might recall at the end of our programming stage, we were looking at a construction budget of about $5 million, and with soft costs, a total project budget of about $6 million. And that at that time, we presented the sort of the red barn concept. Since then, we have proceeded through schematic design and brought the engineers on board and started to basically refine the design through schematic design. And we updated our cost estimate once we got all the engineers on board. And we've also been working with the district attorney and her office, and they decided that they wanted to take the budget allocation for our finishes, furniture, and equipment and put that back into the building costs. We've also discovered that some of the hookup fees through permitting are a little bit more expensive than we anticipated. So we took that $300,000 from the furniture allowance, and we put some of it back into the building construction costs, and we put some of it into other fees to cover some of those hookup costs. And then when we did our cost estimate, we're still a little bit over budget. So we're looking for ways that we can save money on the project. So we did what we call a value engineering exercise, and we were able to find about $559,000 in savings, and that gets us within our targeted $5.2 million budget. Some of the things we looked at from a site standpoint, ways that we could save money, were to eliminate some of the site amenities and potentially look at them as additive alternates. And that allowed us to bring the site costs down below $1 million to $984,370, which takes us within our programming budget. Some of those items essentially were to remove the asphalt drive aisle, to remove security fencing and gates around the staff parking behind the building, to remove evidence vehicle storage and fencing. We simplified the entrance to the building, we reduced the amount of sidewalk, and we reduced the accessible parking to the code minimums. Our plan, however, is to include these in the project as additive alternates, which essentially means that if, when the project comes into bid, that we're under budget, we can add those items back in potentially as the budget allows. We did a similar exercise for the building, looking for ways that we could save costs on the building itself. And one of the things we found once we started doing engineering on the project is that because of the quality of the soils, we need to do what we call a mat slab, which is basically a 12-inch thick concrete slab that sort of floats above the soil, if you will, with the building, and allows for differential settlement if necessary. And so that increased costs, but we were able to bring that down from a proposed 24-inch mat slab to a 12-inch mat slab. We looked at ways that we could save money on interior casework. We looked at what if we went with a metal building, we could eliminate some of the thermal and moisture protection, the roof cricketing, roof insulation, and access hatches. We also looked at how can we minimize interior walls and doors, as well as exterior walls and doors, and reduce costs of finishes and potentially simplify the HVAC controls. We also looked at reducing the number of outlets and telephone and data outlets throughout the project. We also realized that we are not required by code to provide fire sprinklers, so we were able to reduce that cost as well. And that brought us down to $4,176,000, which brings us within that $4.2 million building budget. We also received feedback from the board that the barn design wasn't necessarily favored. And so we were given some imagery of what some building designs might be appropriate. And so we took those into consideration. And we are also exploring the metal building concept. It really brings down construction costs, and it simplifies building construction, and it allows us to really create a more contemporary design responding to the board's comments. And it also allows for an industrial sort of exposed interior structure. We can use insulated exterior panels instead of furring out the exterior walls, and it really provides a really highly cost-effective solution. And these are some images of some different insulated metal panels that we can use to get different finishes on the exterior of the building and still providing insulation. So currently, our base bid for the building plan has some of those reduced interior finishes. We've removed the fire sprinkler system in the fire riser room. We've removed some interior walls and doors, and we've removed some exterior doors that were not required per code and reduced some built-in casework. Then we can take those items and add them back into the project as additive alternates. So for example, additive alternate 1 would be to include some of those interior walls and doors. And we can look at things like adding back in some of the finishes. We can look at adding back the security fencing to the site, evidence parking lot, asphalt parking drive, and HVAC controls. So as we go through the project and we continue to refine the design and refine the project budget, we can add some of those items back into the project. And then once we go to bid, if there's any money left over at bid time, then we can select some of those additive alternates as well. So currently the proposed building is a metal building structure with insulated metal panels on the exterior. The floor plan remains relatively the same. And we provided a covered porch on the backside for staff entrance and break room. And this is the current rendering of the building. We are using a prefabricated engineering metal building with metal girts, the insulated metal panels, and then some various finishes on the insulated metal panels to provide some interest to the building. Right now we're proposing a neutral color. We can select color at any time. That's an easy change, but this is essentially the updated design of the building at this point. And I'd like to open it up for questions if you have any.
Questions from the board?
I left it on because
I see no questions.
I'm a little concerned with eliminating the fire sprinklers in the building.
Mhm.
And that's a safety issue. I know maybe by code, we're not recommended to do it. And I was trying to go back through here and find what that cost was, but you show a slide where it has it green eliminated, but nowhere in here can I find what that cost is if we were to add that back in.
It's approximately $50,000.
$50,000.
Right.
To me, $50,000 is worth a life or 2 or 3 or 4 if something happens inside that building. So I would like to keep at least the fire sprinkler system in myself.
Okay.
I don't know how Barbara feels. I don't know how Barbara feels about it, but she's smiling, so.
Other comments from the board? Madam District Attorney, would you like to make any comments on this building?
Morning, Barbara Uke, District Attorney. First of all, I'd like to thank Deb with Minokas for putting this all together and working so diligently on some of the way this is evolved. My personal preference is the red barn design. I think it's very, very well fitting with the campus, but I understand the board had some concerns about that. We just want to have a building. We want to be all together, and of course, we are concerned about safety. I don't know that what my understanding is that this fire sprinkler system is not required that back in. We'd certainly be in favor of that. As far as our preferences, we would like the first priority to be the doors and the walls that for some of the locations. There is one item, some restroom finishings. We're not concerned about that. We don't need the fancy tile and some of the other items. But as we drill down on it and we get the estimates, then I think we can work through the pick list of the add alternate items. And you know, I'm here if the board has any questions about where we see this going. We know we are not on the same time track, but I believe the admin is still wanting us to push, especially because of the terms of the contract. We are still trying to push for our same groundbreaking and move-in date. So we're very pleased about that. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with admin and Lionakis on this project.
Thank you. Any questions?
We're
from the
very,
district?
well, I just want to say we're very
sorry.
proud to have figured out how to come in under budget.
Are there any questions for the DA on this? This is an informational item. Madam CEO, is there any information? Is there any questions that the board needs to resolve, or is this just information?
So it's just an update of where we're at on the project. And as they have pointed out, some of the requested items have changed. So we felt that the board needed that information. And if the board's okay with it, then we would.
Is the board okay? Anybody? Looks like keep on keeping on.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
All right, move on to item 25.
Item 25, Resolution Administrative Office, approve a resolution of the County Board of Supervisors of the County of Calaveras authorizing re-examination of sales or transaction and use tax records related to the administration and collection of Measure A.
So, good morning, board. This is actually just an amendment of a resolution that was passed prior by your board on April 23rd. It was a templated resolution sent to us by the California Department of Tax and Finance. They have requested this amendment to include not just sales and use tax, but sales and transaction and use tax. So that's the amendment to the resolution.
Housekeeping. All right, any questions from the board? Any public comment on this item? Any comments online?
There are no online comments.
Very well, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Stoppers, or second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Toffenali, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. All right. We're going to take a 5-minute break while we set up for budget. And we'll give it 10 minutes. We'll come back here at 9:45. Thank you very much.
We're good. We're live.
All right, welcome back to. Morning, welcome back. We're going to go into item 26, which is a budget presentation. What I want to do today, and I want to consent to the board, is what we'll do is we'll hear the presentation. And we're going to go through each item in the budget and see if there are any changes or updates and things that would need to happen. And then at the end of the presentation and us going through this book, we will then take a look at what we changed in overall and make sure that's truly what we want to do. So it's going to be a two-step, if that works for everybody. Any objection to that? Two steps toward the door. All right, Marcos, take us away.
All right. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'm Marcos Munoz, Assistant CAO. And with me today, I have Denise Hubner, Deputy CAO. So I'm going to go through the presentation and Denise is going to keep track of all the changes the board mentions here today. She has the pressure. I don't, so.
I should add at the end of this, before we all gather back up and make sure what we did was what we really want to do, Denise is going to give us the full tab. So we might take a little break in between.
All right. Well, good morning. And so we are here today to present the fiscal year 24-25 recommended budget. So our overview today is we're going to go through the budget process, our structural deficit, some influences that helped us put together this budget, as well as go into some of the requests that are being requested in this budget. So the budget process. So overall, the budget, it provides a framework for the funding here in Calaveras County. At a high level, it's the dollars the board is putting towards these services. So it's not just about the dollars, though. It is funding the priorities of the board. So the values and priority that here we have in Calaveras County, as well as the priorities coming down from the feds and the state. So even though we are Calaveras County, a large portion of our budget does focus on the state and federal dollars that run through our county and provide those services. So we're going to go through some of the numbers and kind of go from the high level with all of those dollars down to our general fund level, which is specific to the discretionary dollars here at the local level. And those local dollars are what we call the general fund. So anytime the board has discretion, we call those the general fund operating units. Here is a few terminology. We say a lot of things. You hear recommended, you hear proposed, you hear preliminary budget, you hear adopted budget, final budget, and it can all get very confusing. So just to break it down a little bit, when we say recommended or proposed, they're interchangeable. It is what the CEO's office is recommending to the board or proposing to the board. Once the board approves of it, it becomes our preliminary budget, and that is intended to fund and allow us to operate July through September. And then in September, we will come back and present to the board once the budget has closed. So the 23-24 final budget has closed and been finalized, and we get what is called the adopted budget after the board formally approves the budget that was put forward. So right now, it is the recommended budget because we are recommending it to the board. After today, we will refer to it as the preliminary budget. And then after October 2nd, it'll become the adopted budget. And the timeline. So the timeline was we put out instructions to all department heads, and the budget was compiled and put forth on April 5th. Between April 8th and April 26th, we sat down and we met with department heads. We went through each budget and had discussions related to those budgets. After that, admin and IT worked together to put together the budget book. So this 680-page document can be found online under the administration tab under budgets. Also, just so the public is aware, there is an interactive version. It's the exact same content, but it is a more easier to navigate version of it, which is also online as well. And the budget was published to the county website on May 20th of this year. So our overall budget message. So the dollars in this budget amount to $360 million. So that is all funds. So that is our non-general fund departments, our general fund departments, our designated funds, anything you can come up with is the $360 million. So narrowing it down a little bit, and that is about 1.3% higher than it was last year. Narrowing it down a little bit and looking at operating budget. So our general fund and non-general fund operating budgets together, which also includes special districts, is about $246 million. Of that, going down even further to the general fund, which focuses a lot more on our local dollars, we have that at $83 million, which is an increase of 3.2% over last year, 23-24. So I've mentioned a lot of big numbers here. I've said our general fund budget is 83.64, but just want to make sure that everybody knows the reason why the board doesn't just focus on the 83 million and the reason why it's important to focus on all of the budget is if in the other operating, non-general fund operating budgets, if they were to overspend, so spend more than what the feds and the states are giving us for those services, it will become the responsibility of the general fund. And so yes, we speak a lot about general fund, but it is also important to note that we must keep an eye on the non-general fund operating units as well. And I just want to dive in a little bit more. So $83 million is our general fund appropriations. Within those $83 million in operating budgets in the general fund, we also have things like grants that are for specific purposes. We have fees that are for specific purposes and some other non-discretionary revenues. But when you strip those non-discretionary out, we come down to what the board has obligated to our general fund operating budgets. And that is about $43,689,000. So this is money that was discretionary, where the board had the opportunity to choose where they wanted it to go. And this next slide shows the breakdown of this $43 million. And so here is where that $43 million of discretionary money has gone to and which operating budgets they go to. So this on a high level is a graph that shows the priorities of the board and where they are focused at. So we see the biggest pie here is the sheriff's office. So that does include the jail, the dispatch, and everything that falls under the sheriff's office. You see administration followed in second at 10%. That does include the facilities department, the admin office. That's also our utilities and our public defender and grand jury. After that, you'll see the next biggest slice of the pie is at 7% with the district attorney's budget and the human resources budget. The human resources budget, a big portion of that is the insurance that we are required to pay here at the county. And outside of that, you continue to see them drop off, but those are the biggest slices of the pie there. So the overall budget message is we were looking for a status quo budget. That's what was requested from departments. Our reserves are budgeted at 5.46 million, which is at our policy level of 8% of the average of the past 3 years. Contingencies are budgeted at 1.808, which is also slightly above the approved policy level of 2% of appropriations, and that is also an average of the last 3 years. Our structural deficit did increase. It went from 2.462 last year to 2.986, so it has gone up in this budget. We did use conservative revenue assumptions in this budget as well. So just diving into our structural deficit. So this is the look over the past 4 years. So in 21-22, we were at 9.9 million. And then in 22-23, we dropped to just under 9.4 million. Last year, or the current year we're in for 23-24, we had just under 2.5 million. And then in this budget, we are projected at just under $3 million. So our influences on this budget. There's two basic approaches. There's a conservative and an objective. Conservative, we budget revenues low and expenditures high. And that's the method we took in this budget. The reason why we took this is we didn't want any surprises. We wanted to reduce the likelihood of any shortfall. It does make it harder to balance the budget, and hence you saw our structural deficit did go up. The other method we could have taken was objective, where we try to become as accurate as possible. That would make it a lot easier to balance the budget, but then we have an increased risk of shortfall and running into issues if we don't hit our revenue marks that we would be coming back to the board trying to figure that out. We did also keep an eye on when putting this budget together, there is a potential economic recession. Inflation is still out there. We've seen that in utility costs. We also understand our local businesses are having impacts as well. We continue to keep an eye on our CalPERS unfunded liability. But one of the biggest things out there right now is the state budget, as issues with the state budget could potentially impact us, as well as create cash flow issues from the state to us. And of course, there's always unknown factors out there as well. So just to go over some of the revenues here in the budget and where we budgeted them, we have, here is our property taxes, year over year on how property taxes have been moving the last 5 years. So for 23-24, that number is anticipated. The year isn't quite over yet. So I do want to point out that is where we anticipate ending the year and then what we budgeted for next year. For TOT, we did see a spike from 2021 to 21-22, where we jumped up to just over $2.7 million. In 22-23, we ended up just under $2.7 million. I put in this slide to end about 2.65. We'll probably be right in there, right under 2.7 in that area. So we did a budget for this year, 2.65 million in TOT revenue. Excise tax, we did see a spike from 20 to 21. We saw it jump from 2.467 to just over 3.5 million in fiscal year 21-22. And then a slight increase the following year. But we are seeing a drop in our current year. So in 23-24, we are anticipating at only coming in about $2.9 million. For next year, we have budgeted $2.8 million. And then here we have sales tax. In fiscal year 2020-21, we ended at just under 4.4 million. And since then, we have flattened out, going from just over 5 million in 2 consecutive years to we're going to be at about 4.9 million this year, followed in next year by the same number. So that is a quick look at our revenue, and just jumping into some requests that are in the budget. And I'm going to go through the request, and when I finish the presentation, it sounds like we're going to jump back into them if we have any changes. So our fixed asset request in this budget, there is just under $1.9 million in fixed asset requests. There is one vehicle that's being carried over from the previous year, and that is the 37302. That's a one general fund vehicle. In general fund, we do have the request of $347,000 more in request. 3 of those are vehicles, and one of those is the replacement of the sheriff mobile data terminals in their vehicles. For non-general fund request, we're looking at just under $1.5 million. Those requests include 12 vehicles across different departments, as well as some copiers and some other equipment. Moving into our CIPs projects. So the first slide here is what we are rolling over from the previous year. So we have our animal services facility that is in this budget, as well as we were working on remodeling the assessor's office. Unfortunately, we were not able to complete in this current year, and so we are pushing that off into next year. We hit some hiccups, and so we're addressing those, and we continue to move forward on that one. The government center electrical, as we redo the electrical, that's the construction out back. We're getting close to wrapping that up, and we're hoping to have that wrapped up here no later than the end of August. We also have the behavioral health building. This is specific to the architectural and engineering of the building as we work through those plans. That's what the $1.3 million is. The construction cost is going to be approximately $20 million, but once we finish the plans, we will bring a funding plan on how to cash flow that, as well as the construction costs. We'll bring those in at a different date when we're ready for those. And then we have the building bathrooms that we are currently working on. We did receive all the architectural plans, and so we continue to move through that process to make those ADA, as well as address some other issues related to those bathrooms. And then in Railroad Flat, we're finishing up the projects we had budgeted for this year. And then and we have a grant for the Wilseyville Transfer Station that we continue to work through, that we will be looking at finishing that, or starting and finishing that project in this upcoming year. As we move to replacing the roofs on the government center, we did finish building A in the current year. And so we will be moving on to building E and HR's roofs in the next budget year. And that's what that $400,000 is. And we are working to finalize the Rock Creek Phase 3. That's the construction of the new cell. That project is just about finished. And so we are wrapping up and tying up all the loose ends on that project. And of course, the item we just heard for the district attorney building. And so we have rolled that over into this budget as well. And here is a list of the new projects that are being requested. We have, due to the storms that happened just over a year ago, we had a slide at our Rock Creek landfill. And so we'll be looking to address that. And so that is in the budget. And then we will be looking for reimbursement from FEMA as well. We do have a request for a vehicle shop for the sheriff utilizing his AB 443 funding. We also are requesting for a jail transfer switch at the cost of $110,000, as well as several IT projects, including the firewall at the sheriff's building, server storage, voice server, and a camera in VR. And final CIP request for this upcoming year is for the Hubbardie building. And this is to redo the receptionist area in that, the lobby area. And we did receive a grant, I believe it was 2 grants, to help make that happen. Additionally, in the current year, in 23-24, we had $50,000 put towards a CIP project to do a report to look at the archives building and see what damage has occurred there so that we can address it. So we did do that structural assessment. It was completed. It has been provided to admin. We also had a grant opportunity come up as well right when we received that. So we did apply for that grant. And so based on what happens with the grant, we will be bringing this back at a later date to add that in as well. And then jumping into some budget requests that are in this budget, the personnel request, starting with HHSA. Here is what is being recommended. So there's one additional position. That's a human services, social services aide. In addition to that, we are asking to move folks from one budget unit to another. And that is 2 housing social workers and a housing and community programs manager. What that allows is, as there's been a focus from the state on housing, by moving them into the human services budget, it allows for the drawdown of funds that the state is now running through the human services budget. And then there are a few reclassifications. I do want to point out the last 2. will not be coming back to the board for approval on the 25th. Those two, we are currently working with labor, with the unions, to go over the impacts of those. And at this time, those have not been resolved. So those last two, the technical training specialist to the senior department analyst and the case manager 2 to the case manager 3 will not be included when the list comes back on the 25th. The three above that will, and that is in public health, a reclassification from a department analyst to senior department analyst, as well as a title change from community service liaison to veterans outreach coordinator. And then we have a case manager 3 reclassified to an HHSA program manager. So those are what are recommended for HHSA. This next page is what is not recommended at this time. The reason why these are not recommended is, one, we are going through an organizational review, and many of these are higher level positions that we want to wait and see what happens with the organizational review, as well as the state has changed the way their billing works in behavioral health. And before we approve any new positions, we also want to make sure the numbers that we are projected to receive, that they do flow in at the rate that we are anticipating them. Moving into Public Works, there are 4 reclassifications that Public Works requested. Similar to HHSA, there are 2 on this list that we have not resolved with labor, so we will be holding off on those, and they will not be coming back on the 25th. Those are the admin assistant to the department analyst and the Public Works analyst to the supervising Public Works inspector. What has been resolved with labor is the Public Works analyst to an admin assistant and a junior engineer to administrative assistant as well. At this time, we are not recommending removing the engineering degree based off discussions with your board in the past. We are not recommending that. And then going into the other departments outside of those, we have one slide here. There were 5 additional requests. One is from IT, and that is a title change only from network specialist to IT analyst. We're trying to, by updating this title, we're trying to identify the correct positions for the job. So right now with the network specialist, we are getting network folks, but it is not the right network folks that we are looking for. And so we're trying to update your job description to better identify what we are looking for so that we bring the right people into the county. Animal services is also a title change only, the animal shelter assistant to animal care specialists. And then we are looking for in county council to mirror more of the DA structure with taking one of our deputy county council 4s and reclassing to an assistant county council. In the library, we are looking to increase the FTE of a library assistant from a 0.45 to a 0.8 in order to take on additional duties. And then we are looking for a job description update in the building department. What is not recommended at this time by admin is there was a request for a new IT analyst, and we want to see the analysis that position is needed before we add it in. We also, in IWM, they were looking to add a mechanic, and we are looking for an analysis to see the full benefit of that position if that was added into IWM. There was a request for an ag biologist that we did not recommend at this time. And also in the library, there was another, the Angels Camp branch of a 0.45 to a 0.8 FTE. We did not recommend that one. And Nancy, our librarian, was able to secure funding from the Friends of the Library to do the function she was looking for with that increase, which is provide more hours to the bookmobile. And then at this time, we are not recommending the district attorney 5% increase to DA investigators, as we have a class and comp on the table that's being discussed. And depending what happens there, we want to wait for that to happen before that is discussed. There are a few other additional items that I will be looking for direction on. The first is PG&E settlement funds. There is just over $1.2 million in contingencies. So many years ago, the PG&E settlement funds came into the county. They were allocated to several groups as well as having a spend deadline of December 31st, 2023. That date has passed, so we continue to have this contingency amount of just over $1.2 million. And so I am looking for direction. Right now, it is in the PG&E settlement funds. And so the direction I'll be looking for today is where does the board want that to go? Do we want to move it to a disaster fund to cash flow future disasters? Move it to county capital, which could go to future projects. We can keep it where it is, and so it can go to a variety of things. And I'm looking for input from the board on where we may or where you want to see that in the budget going forward. I also am going to be looking for TOT distribution. We did budget 2.65. There is a balance of $297,000 that we have not allocated anywhere in this budget. And so I'll be looking for direction on where the board would like that to go in this budget. And then the state budget woes is what I titled the slide. There is a lot of unknown and uncertainty happening with the state budget. Their deficit is high, and they're looking to address it. The May revise came out, and it outlines several areas the state will be cutting back to try and put themselves in a better position. And ultimately, their cuts that they do at their level may impact us at the lower jurisdiction, but that is unknown at this time as we go through that process. Or as the state goes through that process, it's unknown to us what those impacts are going to be. In order to not put us in a bad position, the last thing we want to do is start filling all these positions and then get hit hard by whatever the state does. Admin is recommending a freeze on several positions, as well as getting authorization before any recruitments that we approve the recruitments. And so here is the list that we are looking at for the recommended freeze at this time. Again, this is to freeze while we look to what the state is doing, and as we see how their cuts are going to impact us at a local level. Now, these are specific to general fund departments. I do not have a list currently on the non-general fund. We admin do work with them as they put requests in as well. And so we would just like to continue to sign off on any recruitments that are also going through. So I do want to acknowledge the Board of Supervisors for their support in this process, as well as the County Auditor's Office. IT played a big part also in helping us put this budget together. Human Resources, and specifically the departments, the department heads, their fiscal staffs, they were great through this process. They were very timely, and I couldn't ask for a better team to help put this together. So the recommendation today is we would like a discussion surrounding TOT so we can figure out the remaining funds, or if the board has any other changes to the allocation. We are looking for direction on the PG&E settlement funds, direction on the list of freezed position, direction on a freeze of the provided positions, or any direction on changes to the personnel, fixed asset, or CIP request. In addition, if the board has any direction on the budget changes, we would love to hear that as well. And as we go through the process, I know Denise is going to keep a list in real time and display that towards the end. With that, that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you, Denise, for this presentation. I want to thank Audit Control and all those department heads that worked really hard to make this happen. We had this budget well in advance, and I appreciate the time that staff put in to meet with all of us and walk through our numbers. It's not like the old days where you had 50 million questions. You're able to answer all the stupid ones that we might have in private, which is always appreciated. What I'd like to do, if there are any questions at this point, or otherwise, what I'd like to do is start digging through this item by item and see if there are any changes. Are there any questions, or do you guys want to just get to the meat and potatoes and get to the end and see whether we resolved in these 5 points along the way? Because we're probably going to answer them as we go. Does that work for everybody? All right. With no further ado, get at your homework. We're going to start off alphabetically, according to the books. We start with the assessor's office. Are there questions from the board regarding the assessor's budget as it sits in front of us? Supervisor Stopper.
Not subject to any changes, but with the remodel that we're carrying over from prior years and it being put off, and then there's some hiccups along the way, you know. Every time we go in and remodel, we open a new can of worms. Is there gonna be any additional costs that we're gonna have to look at possibly in the future that we may want to take into consideration for the final budget?
So this budget, make sure my mic's on. This budget takes into the account. So the big hiccup that we ran into is before we could start any construction, they identified asbestos, so we have to abate it. So there is an increase to the project over last year. It was approximately $30,000 to abate. We did include that in this budget. That is wrapped up in the project costs that are proposed for this coming year.
Excellent, sir. Thank you.
Are there any other questions regarding the assessor's budget? Would the assessor have anything she wants to say? Or are we good? All right. Very well. We'll move on to the auditor controller. Any questions from the board regarding the auditor controller's budget as presented? Madam Auditor Controller, is there anything you want to add? Take the win and walk. There you go. All right. Moving on to building budget. Are there any questions from the board regarding the building budget? Let me add in when I call for comments from the assessor or others, that would be an appropriate time for public comment if anybody's here on those items. So building official, anybody? Doug, is there anything you want to add?
Chair, members of the board, Chief Building Official.
As your board is aware, this proposed budget is going to be different for building when we bring it back. We've all been advised of some of the revenue issues that we're currently having with this economy. I expect to have some significant changes to provide to your board once we get through this budgetary process and leading into the final budget. In addition, I'm going to be moving forward some changes to our operating procedures in order to try and offset any staffing changes that we have and continue to maintain service to the public. So as I have these programmatical changes, I'll be reaching out to your board, informing you as to any additional streamlining or other cooperation we can have with the other departments in order to continue to maintain service at the current level. And if there is any service reductions, we will be bringing forward those reductions in advance of any significant changes. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Doug. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none in the room. All right. Once going twice, moving on to coroner. Questions from the board supervisors regarding the coroner's budget? Anybody from the public want to comment on the coroner's budget? All right, moving along. County clerk recorder. Questions regarding the county clerk recorder's budget? I have a quick question, Marcos. We're going to continue to pursue the archives and that will come back to us once we know what we're looking at.
We submitted a grant application, so we're waiting to hear back from that first. Regardless of whether we get it or not, though, we will bring back something for the archives building.
I hope that this board in the future considers whatever, if we do or don't get the grant, our records are amazing resource for our county, and I hope that we'll continue to preserve them.
And Chair, I'm a product of what came out of that building.
I don't know if you want to unpack that one, Supervisor Huberty, but
I had a quick question, just in that pie chart where you actually wrote museum, that's mainly archives, is that correct?
Archives, yes, so.
they are truly a treasure. So, all right, seeing none, we'll move on to county council. County council, do you want to add anything?
Nope, but I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Does the board have any questions? Supervisor Huberty? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Any members of the public want to comment on county council's budget? All right, seeing none, making progress. County Executive Office. MCO,
I have no comments at this time, but I am happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
board members?
I do have a question, but it goes back to the beginning and it's probably a silly, stupid one, but the financial policies were done in 2018. And the administrative were done in 2020. And I'm just wondering, shouldn't those be updated now that we have a CEO? Because some of these regulations seem a little bit outdated.
So we have been in the process of updating all of our policies, and we'll continue that once we get the budget passed here. I know Ms. Hubner from my office has done a lot of work on our policies right now.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Questions from the board? No? I've got a couple. So it's all right. We're spending 200, and I want to just point this out, that doesn't mean it's going to change, but $264,000 of general fund funding for PATV, correct?
That is correct.
Is that good with the board still? You guys want to spend $250,000? All right. I'd like to, and then we don't have anything in the Parks and Recreation budget.
So we do have leftover funding in the TOT, and that was one of, I don't know if the board noticed on the slide from Mr. Munoz, but that was one of the options for the board would be to actually dedicate that funding for Parks and Rec.
This might be a conversation.
Well, depending if
Depending- why don't we-
discuss the Visitors Bureau.
Right, well, where that's next. It's all
Right, but
related.
yeah. Carryover on that
It would probably be.
from last year. Is
Well-
there any carryover on that budget at all from last year?
We are anticipating about 200,000 in carryover, but we're waiting for final numbers for the year-end close to bring that back in the final budget.
That's a significant.
What was
About
that?
200,000.
Where's that money?
That's what we're anticipating it coming in higher.
Which
TOT.
fund? TOT. Right.
Yeah.
No. I'm
So
talking
right-
about that, we allocated money to the Parks and Recs fund last year. Yes. Did we spend all of it?
There's approximately 70,000 anticipated to be remaining.
That's what I mean by
Yeah.
carryover. I apologize.
I would like to propose, and we could discuss the source of
Yeah.
the funding next. But I would
Well-
like to propose for Parks and Recreation that we put $250,000 towards that to match what we're doing for PATV.
Are we discussing carryover now?
No, this is the difficult part. We should discuss it since that's the first one.
Well, there's $70,000 carryover, you're saying, so
That's.
you're gonna add 250,000 to that? to make
That's
it
correct.
$320,000
Yes,
for,
for actualization of the Parks and Recreation plan that we spent the last year building. So we're gonna need some way to make that a reality and put that into action and start working on our parks. So I'm proposing that if we're gonna spend $264,000 for PATV, we should spend $250,000 to serve the rest of the community.
yeah, I want to separate those two. I think they're not even in the same ballpark, so.
Well, they're all
The
general
PAT,
fund.
what we spend on that is something else, but if you want $250,000 for Park and Recreation to add to the 70,000 carryover, I'll discuss that with you. I'm in favor of that, but keep bringing up PATV is not, they're not associated.
I didn't
And
suggest
trying to
that,
give you a leverage on what you're, so I don't see the coalition between the two.
well,
So,
I do.
I don't.
So we could disagree on that, but thank you for your support. Good.
Are we discussing TOT? Because I would like to make a suggestion
We
real
need to
quick.
talk
No,
about
before,
TOT.
no, prior. If no one has the intent and just going with the Visitors Bureau request, then we don't need to discuss that part and we can discuss the rest. And then we don't need to go through this exercise. Unless we need to make that decision real quick
and then come back, because we've been through this multiple
Yeah,
times.
I know, but we got one
Okay.
pot of money and it's all related in the general fund.
But we do the juggle last year during the budget council.
We could talk about the visitors bureau. I mean,
No, we don't.
So Supervisor Hubbard is, in receipt of an advice letter from the FPPC, whose recommendation is that to avoid an impermissible conflict of interest, he recuse himself anytime we're talking about the Visitors Bureau or funding the Visitors Bureau. Kind of full stop. So from my understanding, unless we're talking about the Visitors Bureau, Supervisor Hubbard can choose to participate.
So if there's no discussion on changing the Visitors Bureau funding, you can go right to the rest of the TOT money.
well, there's going to be discussion on it.
Okay, so there we go.
I was gonna say
That's why I was asking, sir.
Thank you.
so yeah, so at whatever point the board wishes to discuss that allocation, Supervisor Hubbard can recuse himself and then rejoin for the remainder of the discussion.
It's Supervisor Hubbard's call on that. So I'm proposing 200. Is there anybody who doesn't want to allocate? And we'll talk about what the source of that fund is going to be. Or do you want to talk about that now? I'm proposed that we take 250,000 of TOT and put it towards Parks and Recreation. The three votes, two other votes in support of that.
Sir, I'm of the same mind, but at this time, with the excess left over from last year and with the possible state requirements, I would like to do that with the intent in Parks and Rec, but a savings and not allocate it to any specific project immediately. And that way, later on, if there's a project comes up, the board can vote on that and move forward on it. But if we get to a point where the state in September comes forward, then we might need to reel that back later.
Of course.
And that's my intent on it. I would love to put it towards Parks and Rec, and that's my intent with it. But the real world says in September, the state may make it harder for us and we may have to deal with the real.
I think we're all on the same page.
Right, no,
Everything we
that's
do
my
here
intent
could change.
with the line item though.
Right. But let's get a preliminary. So Gary's on board. I think he was on board. And I'm not sure where you are. Are you on board or not?
I'm on board and I'm glad that you got Gary's vote for him. I'm joking, Gary. But
Wasn't him that got my vote. I'm for it. Although
in the
in
context,
September, your point is well taken. And in September, when we do final budget, things could change. But for right now, yeah. And possibly then too, depending on what the state does.
so with that on top of the 70,000 carryover is my intent.
So I see the chairwoman of Parks and Rec.
Salad.
Please come on up.
Judy Allen, I'm the chair of the Parks and Rec. And we did prepare a letter from our commission, which I'd like to read. On behalf of the Calaveras County Parks and Recreation Committee, the commissioners would like to make the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors in regards to future transient tax fund allocation for Parks and Recreation. For the upcoming 24-25 fiscal cycle, Calaveras County Parks and Recreation Committee recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they renew the TOT fund allocation of approximately $279,014 that was directed to Parks and Recreation last year. If approved, the commission recommend that this year's Parks and Recreation TOT fund allocation be used for the staffing of a new Calaveras County Parks and Recreation Department with the intention of creating valuable and much needed recreation programming for county residents. Potential Parks and Recreation programming could include summer day camps for kids, fitness programs for seniors, sports leagues, pickleball, which seems to be popular these days, and flag football with a variety of other activities which allow residents to enjoy the wonderful natural resources Calaveras County has to offer. At the direction of Calaveras County Board of Supervisors, the TOT funds were directed to be used to hire a consultant for development of a Parks Master Plan. A draft of the new Parks Master Plan is anticipated to be completed at the end of 2024. With the completion and hopeful adoption of the new Parks Master Plan, the county will be in a great position to move forward with future parks and recreation plans and programs. However, without a Parks and Recreation department or dedicated staff to coordinate programs for the community and oversee facility upgrade projects and grant opportunities, Calaveras County Parks and Recreation Commission fears that forward progress for the development of parks and recreational opportunities in the county will stall. However, a new Parks Master Plan in combination with opportunities in the county will, got to clean my glasses, I guess, here. Let's see. Skip down here. The annual allocation of a portion of the Calaveras County Visitors Bureau TOT funds to Parks and Recreation could fund a Calaveras County Parks and Recreation Department for years to come. The subsequent creation of fee-based recreation programs for county residents can be anticipated to help cover the cost of running the department and programs themselves. In this way, a new county Parks and Recreation Department should be able to generate its own revenue to offset programming costs. The Amador County Recreation Agency is a working example of this and has been successfully providing a wide variety of programs for Amador County residents for 20 years. Calaveras County Parks and Recreation Committee requests that the Board of Supervisors consider this recommendation during the TOT fund allocation reviews. Calaveras County Parks and Recreation Committee would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for their recent support of parks and recreation development and would like to request the board's continued support so that the development of parks and recreation in Calaveras County can finally come to fruition. So we do appreciate your support. And I've been working on parks and recreation for 25 years here, and it's a frustrating process. And I mean, we depend on recreation. We have a lot of kids who don't have enough ball fields and that sort of thing. And I think this is really, really important to county residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. And Gary, I'm glad you brought her in as your Parks and Recs Commissioner. It's a pleasure to see her.
Kate?
Good morning, board and county administration. My name is Kate Allen. I am the Parks and Rec Commissioner for District 2. And I'm here today to recommend, as your Parks and Rec Commissioner, the allocation of top funds for the creation of a Calaveras County Parks and Rec Department. I recognize that the county has many priorities and many needs, and there are never enough funds to satisfy them all. You are constantly tasked with tough decisions, and this board has accomplished and pushed forward great things, and you have many projects in the works that will make a lasting impact on our community. Let the final creation of a Parks and Rec department be another one of those great accomplishments. This idea has been kicked around for 20 plus years, and it's time to actually take action. Studies and journal reviews and articles about the positive impacts of parks and recreation on our community are so numerous, I won't take the time to list them now, but I would like to read a section from the National Recreation and Park Association's paper titled "Why Parks and Recreation Are Essential Public Services." Parks and recreation have 3 values that make them essential services to communities: economic value, health and environmental benefits, and social importance. Just as water, sewer, and public safety are considered essential public services, parks are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in a community, ensuring the health of families and youth, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of community and a region. There are no communities that pride themselves on their quality of life, promote themselves as a desirable location for businesses to relocate, or maintain that they are environmental stewards of their natural resources without such communities having a robust, active system of parks and recreation programs for public use and enjoyment. Parks and recreation programs produce a significant portion of operating costs from revenue generated fees and charges. Parks and recreation programs generate revenue directly from fees and charges, but more importantly, provide significant indirect revenues to local and regional economies from sports tournaments, special events, arts, music, holiday festivals, and more. Economic activity from hospitality expenditures, tourism, fuel, recreational equipment sales, and many other private sector businesses is true and sustained in a sustained value to local and regional economies. Let's join our neighbors in Amador County and Tuolumne County and finally begin to offer parks and rec programs to our residents. A summer day camp for kids like the one that Amador County currently offers would provide much needed childcare opportunities for working professionals in Calaveras County while school is out for summer. Rec programs like summer day camp would attract new home buyers and help retain working professionals in our area. Let's stop losing great people to other areas because they are doing more for their residents. It's time for Calaveras County to invest in the quality of life of the wonderful residents that live here. Currently, Amador County is offering summer day camp programs for all of the kids in Amador County for the 6 weeks that school is out for summer. Calaveras County doesn't have anything like this, and we won't unless we have a rec department, not just a master plan that has nobody to actually implement it. A rec department that can create revenue and fund itself. We just need it to be formed. And I ask you today to consider that as part of the tot tax allocation is to finally have Calaveras County have a Parks and Rec department for all the residents who live here. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Good morning. I'm Farah Roberts, and I'm here today on behalf of the Prevent Child Abuse Council and under that a committee of Family Wellness Coalition. Recently, we presented you with information about the comprehensive prevention plan, which is looking at child maltreatment and child abuse. Calaveras per capita has some of the highest child abuse rates in the state and in the nation. We did a community survey when we were looking at how we were going to provide prevention services. And the community survey included youth, parents, seniors. It also included youth. And overwhelmingly in the categories of the social determinants of health, over education, they wanted recreation. That was the primary thing that they wanted. They needed a place for their families to be able to congregate, to have the opportunity to meet other parents. And this became the overwhelming response. Surprisingly, all of the other challenges within the county that could possibly lead to child abuse, the families were saying they needed a place for their children to play. And so I'll leave you with those statements. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Samantha Marler, and I'm here with Public Health, and I work for the CalFresh Healthy Living Program. I am not a big fan of public speaking, but this is an important topic. I have young children myself, and I work with a lot of young children in the community, and this is very important. So in the fall of 2023, Public Health did a community health assessment, and I would like to read you some quotes from that. This is from a Valley Springs resident. In general, we have a lot of big parks, but we don't have enough local little parks. This is from a San Andreas resident. We don't have any county parks here, and we have been talking about building one, but we have yet to understand if we're going to be able to secure a space for the park. This is also from a Valley Springs resident. The actual quality of living here is wonderful. The downside is, I would say, is that the lack of walkability. You have to drive everywhere to do anything. I'd like to just walk to the store, but there are no pedestrian paths and there are an awful lot of people on scooters and wheelchairs that could get themselves where they want to go if we just had sidewalks. From our community health assessment, 58.8% of the people surveyed said one of our biggest need is walking and biking paths. And recreational opportunities connected to health outcomes exist, but vary across the county. According to the California Healthy People Index, only 42.2% of Calaveras residents live within half a mile of a public park, beach, or open space greater than 1 acre. Compared to the rest of California residents, the rest of California is 76.7%. That's a huge difference here in Calaveras County. The other thing I would like to note from the results from our community health assessment is up to 66% of people are getting less than 5 days of 30 minutes of physical activity. That is a huge outcome on health in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. No further public comment, and we will limit it to 3 minutes. Yes. Supper?
I think we have consensus that money is going into Parks and Rec, but there's a difference between the 250,000 and the 297 of $47,816. Last year, we did a location to the chamber of 50,000. I would like to consider moving forward with the rest of that total right now, $47,816 to allocate to the chamber so they can continue doing the work that they started doing for us this last year.
And that's in TOT.
That's TOT.
That's what you're suggesting. All right, we're talking TOT. Is there anybody who objects to roughly $50,000 to the TOT to the visitors, excuse me, to the chamber?
Abstain from that.
Okay. There you go. Thank you very much. The next item in this packet is the PG&E settlement, and then TOT's coming up after that. We'll have that, how we divide that. Okay. PG&E settlement fund. Marcos, you asked us to make a determination of what we want to do with the $1.2 million that remains.
That is correct.
All right.
1.244.
Who wants to start off?
I am open to discussion of putting it into a fund for emergency. Did we get another street fire? In the past, the county has typically used other funds at the cash flow, and I think this is a opportunity that we won't see again, to put that into a fund to support that type of cash flow. And I know we hope on wildfires, but it also, we saw the flooding last year down in the other districts. And that would help until FEMA or other reimbursements from the state to replenish it and keep our cash flow. And then in the future, we have something, we already have a pot of money we can start building on. We have, rather than starting from $0.
You want to stop her?
That makes complete sense to me, and I agree with that path, because when those times we don't receive the money until later, FEMA, we spend it in the case of emergency. We've done that in the past on some money. How much is in that now? Are we re-encumbering that amount that we've done in the past, or is this the sum of what's left over from it and we're discussing this again?
So in the past, we moved general fund into those operating budgets, but then once we had the expenditures, we put it back into our county capital. So we don't have a specific fund. This would essentially create that at this moment.
We created one time.
No, we used teeter funds in the past, and we did away with teeter count to get offset our deficit. So we were talked about creating that,
Okay, yeah,
but we never followed through with it.
I agree. Yeah, no, for some reason that, conversations come up multiple times. I think that's pragmatic idea and I completely agree with Ms. Fullendorf. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we need, but when it comes to those, we need to be prepared for those disasters. So I agree.
Is our auditor controller smiling and going, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have been through enough disasters that we know that cash flow is the challenge. And this money came out of the crucible of the Butte fire to help this county get back on its feet. It would seem appropriate to continue that for the next disaster, which is going to happen. Hopefully not today, but I support Supervisor Fullendorf's idea as well.
I support it too, especially with their auditor saying, yeah, I can't go against it.
Okay, so, okay, we got Pete, you got your direction there. We are down to TOT, I guess is the next question, since that's the next one in the box. So.
Chair, I'm gonna recuse myself
Thank you.
for this
Can you
conversation.
throw up that slide that shows where the distribution is? As it currently sits in this book? All right.
Back at page 353. Oh, we got it.
All right. So we just discussed allocating $300,000 to the chamber and 250 for Parks and Rec. So that's about the sum. Roughly. I do have a question about what we're delivering to the CVB. Their $400,000 budget as presented is their entire budget for the year. And they're sitting on cash reserves of roughly $260,000 in savings accounts. That seems like a lot of money to be sitting on, and we've got other needs. I do not question the validity of what they're doing or the quality of their work. I just, with all the needs going on in the county, having a department sitting on almost a year of funding and reserves, I would like to propose that we reduce the CVV budget to $300,000 and put the rest somewhere else. Anybody gonna go along with that?
I have a couple questions.
Supervisor Stopper?
Wasn't the reserve quite a bit more the prior year?
Yes.
It was quite a bit for, so they have two
And it's not a
accounts.
department, it's a separate entity, so I just want to
Right.
make that clear. Sorry, sir.
No, you're right.
They have two accounts. So they have a reserve, which is about $103,000. And then they have their other account, which is essentially their cash flow account. And it was quite a bit more last year. This year,
Significantly more than what I recall.
it was.
So it was drawn down this with approximately the same budget.
It was, and we met with CVB staff last week. They had excess COVID fund monies that they were spending down in this year's budget. That is not in next year's budget.
Right. And so the reason I'm asking this is because the difference between the current 260K and what was last year and what worked with the drawdown. It's pretty close to another $200,000. So those cash reserves they have been using this last year.
Mhm.
And personally, them coming forward with the $400,000 instead of requesting the full amount. And them drawing those down last year. I appreciate the work they have done, and I see that if we reduce it by another $100,000, sir, from my perspective, they will be upside down a little bit on the drawdown, the way the numbers work out from what I recall.
I don't think so, but
I think it was closer to $500,000 to $600,000 in the reserve last year they had.
that is correct.
Right, so they drew down $300,000 of it. And at that rate, that's $40,000 more than their reserve this year.
Correct, but I was just looking at how they can maintain an adequate reserves, burn down the cash they're sitting on a little bit. Seems like $150,000 is a pretty good reserve to have when we're giving them 300,000. Madam CEO, you have a point you'd like to make?
Yes, so it's my understanding that the CVB had built up quite a cash reserve during COVID when they weren't doing as much tourism promotion, but they have begun doing a lot more tourism promotion right now, especially as we're going into potentially a recession, to make sure that we are maintaining those tourists coming into the county and contributing to that TOT pot of funding that we're talking about allocating right now. It's really important that we do make sure that we're bringing those tourists into the county and that we're making sure that we're promoting out there. So that's what they're doing right now, is trying to make sure that we're keeping that funding up at a sustainable level for everybody else.
Supervisor Stopper?
I just want to say that last year I went with you and we both agreed on it, and it was a little bit of a hard fight. I see the CVB stepping up and doing more. And I see with the numbers I just explained, that doesn't pencil out, sir. So this year I cannot support going further than the current $400,000, because I appreciate the work they've done towards those things.
Okay, I'm getting the impression I do not have 3 votes on this board to do that. So we'll move on. The question Marcos has is, we've just spent 300,000. Are we good with this distribution with the amendments that we've made so far?
So I just have one clarifying question. We specifically said $250,000 out of TOT, and then there's the remaining 47,816. So it's 250 and 47,816.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Ben said 47,286.
Yes, to the chamber. Yes. Perfect.
I believe last time when she was doing her update to us on the chamber, this being her first year working with fiscal with the county, it being another separate entity, she didn't know about the submission time. And we want to pick up that so they don't miss the boat. Yes.
Okay, so we all good on TOT? All right. Excuse me, we'll give them to. All right. Finishing up that, we'll move on to district attorney. Any questions from the board on the district attorney's budget? The district attorney would like to speak to our budget.
Thank you. Barbara Uke, District Attorney. I wanted to address the one request I had that admin is not recommending at this time. It's the 5% increase to my DA investigators. As a point of clarification, it is just the DAI 1 that I'm requesting a 5% increase. The total amount is for next year would be just under $5,000, $4,887 as we have budgeted out. And the reason I'm putting that request is just what happened last September. So just a little bit of history, if you will indulge me. Last September, the DSA members all got a 10% increase, which I really support. It was very needed for many, many reasons. My investigators are also DSA members, but they were cut out of that 10% increase. And I'm sure there was many reasons for that, but the result was that it created an inequity between the corporal position at the sheriff's office and my investigators. At the sheriff's office, you have to be a corporal before you can become a detective. My investigators are experienced detectives. So when the DSA members got their increase, but cut out my investigators, it raised the corporals above my investigators. And that's a complete inequity. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's something that needs to be fixed. The class and comp does fix that. I'm not requesting a 10% increase. I'm only requesting the 5% increase to my level 1 investigators just to correct that inequity. That brings up my investigator 1 just a hair above the current corporal position. I addressed this immediately when it happened last September with admin and HR. I addressed it again at mid-year, and I was encouraged to wait until the class and comp came in, which of course makes sense. If you do adopt the class and comp recommendations, my request is moot, right? Because it does fix that inequity. But, we're 9 months down the road. I've lost candidates. I do have someone in background now, but I've been back down to, two-thirds of my investigative staff. We've had issues over the years with recruitment and retention. Many times I'm 50% down. I've been a third down. And I understand that, with small numbers, it's easy to make it sound very, very extreme. But, it has a big impact on my office. It has actually a big impact on the sheriff's office. It has a big impact on public safety for the county when I do not have qualified and sufficient number of investigators. We don't have a crystal ball. I don't know if you're going to be able to or willing to adopt the class and comp. So I do recognize that if you do, my request is moot. However, I would urge you to grant my request for the 5% increase to the DAI 1 at this point. Because if you do adopt the class and comp, well, there's no harm, no foul, right? Because it actually, the increase would be above the 5%. Because it needs to be fixed at some point. That is why I'm making that request right now. Any questions?
Any questions for the district attorney?
What was the total cost
$4,887.
entire year?
Yes, it's just for the one. It's just for the
Just for
position
the
one. It's
one.
not for all my investigators. It's just
Just the one.
yeah, it's just the one to correct that imbalance with the corporal position.
So while we do agree that it's a minor amount and that it is something that needs to take place, we are wanting that to occur through the class and compensation adjustments that we're making, just because I know that there's a number of employee groups within the county who feel like we've put other advances forward without them. So we're just trying to be mindful that a lot of our employees are looking for this class and comp to go forward. And if we start picking off positions in advance of really negotiating through that, some employees are going to feel like they're less valued perhaps than other employee groups. So we just want to make sure that we're being fair to everyone. And we do agree with the district attorney that this is something that needs to occur. And with that, we know your board's very supportive of making sure that all of our employees have some sort of equity within the system.
Questions? Supervisor Stopper, click you're ready. Yep. Any question, any public comment on this item? Any online? Any online?
We have no online public comment.
All right. Is there anybody who wishes to amend the administration's recommended budget?
I completely agree with both of you. No, it's like, but because you do agree with each other. It's just timing. And with the recruitment process right now, yes, you say it's easier to make those numbers like 50% sound worse because of the amount, but that's another issue with a rural county is you're already doing more with less just because of the situation that we are all in rural counties, so yes, that percentage number does sound significant compared to the actual employees, but you're already down by a percentage, I would say, just because of what we have to work with in rural county. On the equity in the entire county, I agree with Teresa, and it's my intent to move forward and take care of all those. But I think that justifiably we could move forward with something for the DA right now because it is part of our public safety and process, and recruitment for those positions is crucial to keeping our streets safer. And so personally, I'm for it.
Is there anybody else who's for amending the county administrative, the budget in front of us as requested by the district attorney?
My only concern, I have a question for the CEO, is we adopt this today, how many of the other department heads are gonna be lining up at the podium for the same request. And we're not gonna be able to accommodate it. I mean, we've been all holding the line so hard to get through to this conference, and everyone's been very patient. We're gonna end up with a line at the door. And I already see department heads staring at us, and I can't pick and choose. I want to hold the line and keep up with the comp and study, personally. So my next question is, when is that coming before the board for? I know we've got some things that we need to do with the union, but what is that potential timeline? Because if we're looking at more than, I just, yeah, is it gonna be before
So
September?
it's our office's goal to complete this process prior to final budget.
Okay.
But that will depend largely on the meet and confers with the various bargaining groups and how those pan out. So, but to your point, most of our department heads do feel strongly that their folks need to be compensated fairly. And so I think everybody is in our district attorney's shoes as well, that a lot of our employees are undercompensated and that there's some inequities in the system where folks are definitely severely undercompensated. So really trying to move forward with everyone and make sure that we're valuing all of our employees, I think is important.
Could we hold on this decision until final, and if things change before September, when we adopt the final, we can reevaluate this if it's gonna take longer for comp, and is that a good compromise if that takes longer?
So you're suggesting we stick with this budget, and then if we don't get the class and comp done, we take this on.
Yes, and I don't just mean that, I mean all the inequity, everybody in all the department. Because it's not just gonna be Uline, it's gonna be Health and Human Services, it's gonna be Public Works, it's gonna be everybody that we need to be working on that. And I'd rather do it, and I'd rather get to September and then personally, and then if that, depending on how that goes, I'm trying to be optimistic and that it will be positive and we'll be able to do that. And then if for some reason it goes a different way, then we can start looking at all of those positions at once and do an entire sheet for all departments. I would feel more comfortable on that because we're gonna have to, it's not a matter of not, it's just a matter of when, and I don't wanna act outside of everybody having to hold the line right now, because I don't think it's fair.
Ben?
Barbara. With the intent, but until all votes happened, it's not real, but with the intent of bringing it before the final budget, can you wait that long so that?
Well, we waited 9 months, so
I
I think.
That said, with the intent of moving forward on this, can we wait for the class and comp study another month?
I
Say yes.
I am satisfied with that. I do not want to give you the impression that I'm trying to jump the line. I'm not asking for other changes to the other staff members on my office because everybody was on that list. And I appreciate the position the board is in, and I appreciate the position that the other departments are in. I just want to impress upon you that what happened last September when every peace officer, every of the county's cops got a 10% increase, which was well-deserved, right? There were 3 that were cut out, and those are in my office. So it's not, it's not that, this is actually part of the class and comp. This happened before the class and comp came out. They were all given 10% increases. There were 3 DSA members that were cut out, and those were in my office. And it's just what happened. And so I did bring this up as soon as it happened. I've been in discussions. I'm sure admin can and HR can attest to the fact that I've been kind of a pest about it because it's completely inequitable at this point. And I'm not asking for the 10%. I'm not asking for that the other DSA members got. I'm not asking for a carve out of what is being recommended in the class and comp. What recommended in the class and comp is far more than the 5%. That I'm asking for. I'm just asking for this tiny little fix. And if you want to drill down and just make it a penny more than the corporals, I'd be satisfied with that. But I will wait a month. Mr. Stoppers.
And I appreciate your position and I do support it. And I did not know that 3 of your people were with the DSA with the rest, and that's unfortunate. That was the situation. Just say, I believe my intent and a majority of the rest of the board intent is to remedy those type of situations.
Thank you.
So the consent, to just make sure I'm clear, is to continue with this budget with the knowledge that we will see the class and comp before our final budget.
Yes.
All right, Ben, you good with that?
I'm good with that.
And if the class and comp is not going to be instituted, we will still address this in some way, one way or another. All right.
Supervisor
You
Paul,
just want
Okay.
to it.
there will be a line going out the door for sure.
Right. Thank you.
So we get it. All right. Moving on to Environmental Management Agency. Are there any questions regarding the Environmental Management Agency's budget? Is there any comment on the public Environmental Management Agency's budget? Any public comment? Anybody online? All right. Doesn't look like it.
No online. sorry.
Okay, we'll move on to Health and Human Services Agency. Is there any questions from the board on this piece of the budget? Any comments from the public? I want to be clear that we have had this budget for a while and we have had detailed discussions with the staff. So we're not just flipping through the book. It's just making that clear to the public. No comments on Health and Human Services budget? All right. Human Resources. Any questions on Human Resources? Public? All right. Information Technology. Questions? Public? Supervisor Stopper, got something? No. Integrated Waste. Questions on this budget? Supervisor Stopper.
The request of IWM mechanic that I saw in there, that's not recommended at this time, pending a, full review on what that entails, whether it's 1 or 2 people. I just want to say, when about 3 years ago, when I was chair, I did a full tour of all the public works facilities and talking with the mechanics. It's a draw on public works at the same time, especially during certain times of the year with equipment and plowing services. With the mechanics being spread out. And I want to keep that into consideration that, I believe that this is the position that's needed. And with our conversations, we do need to investigate that more. So I'm not saying right now, but working into September, the consideration of that moving forward. And also another thing I want to bring up, it kind of goes with that, and it does go with public works. I can bring it up later. When I talk to those mechanics and going around, I might have a question for HR, Judy, if she's here. If you don't mind, real quick, can I ask you a question about our tool policy for the mechanics? A lot of the tools they use are their own. And I'm not expecting us to go through and buy them all their tools, but when they're using their own tools and they break them on the job that they're working for Calaveras County, what's our policy on replacing those?
So the way with mechanics, the state, if we require mechanics to use their own tools, then we have to pay double minimum wage. But since we do provide tools, Some mechanics prefer to use their own tools. And so we actually don't have a replacement policy for their tools because we will supply the tools to them.
Okay, so you do supply all their tools
And
unless they choose to use their.
right, and I've had this discussion with Public Works before.
Just, yeah, no, I just want to make sure I'm clear on what it actually is before I, because I was understanding a little bit different of a situation. So if that's the policy, I'm good with it. I'll drop it at that. So that's all I want to ask on that. I just want to address that.
Thank you.
Any other questions on IWM? Jen, would you like to say something?
Morning, board. Jennifer Cashy, Director of Integrated Waste. It was more just a comment. I've been out on catastrophic leave, and I just wanted to express my gratitude to my staff for bringing this budget forward. I was not a participant in the development of this budget, but a huge shout out to my staff for doing such a fantastic job.
Jen. I was down at the dump this weekend and it looked great. Always nice. I'm sorry, the county landfill. It's not a dump, right? It's a piece of art. Okay, moving on from IWM, library. Any questions on the librarian's budget? Nancy, you good?
I just wanted to put my voice into the request to please pass the company class study, because my staff so hardworking. They never complain about what they make, but they make the lowest in the county, as do I. So if you, it doesn't quell their enthusiasm for what we did. We served about 300 lunches yesterday to our children as our program started, and jillions of kids enrolled in summer reading. So we're on the job, but I hope that you will do that.
And Nancy, I'm sure I speak on behalf of the board. We just can't thank you enough for your service to our county the last couple years, several years. Thank you.
To reiterate that, thank you, Nancy, and also the Friends of the Library for what they've done and helping out with the budget and where it's needed. It's been phenomenal. So you working with them, and you're part of what built that to what it is today. So thank you.
And it's special, and I agree with Supervisor Topper. Special thanks to the Friends of the Library who have really been great partners. Other comments on the library? All right, moving on to OES. Any questions on the OES budget? Seeing none. Eric, do you have anything you want to add to it? Nope. Any public comment on this?
There is no online public comment.
All right. Planning. Questions on the planning budget? Any public comment? Moving quickly. Probation. We got our PO here. Any questions on the probation budget? Nope. Would you like to say anything? Okay.
Well, I got questions now.
All right. Hey, she's not in uniform and knocking on the front door. It's okay. Okay, moving on. Public Works. Public Works questions. Board.
I just want to follow up on the mechanic thing.
Sure.
I'll double down on that. Also, we're holding back on some of these on the meet and confers. Overall, I agree with holding off for now. Also with the structure of the class and comp study coming forward. And also, with Robert making the move towards this retirement at this time, and us looking forward to the future to bring in a new director. I think a lot of these changes may be thought out as a new director comes in so that they can put it in the structure that best fits them moving forward. Certain things need to happen as we move forward, but I think overall, most of these need to be considered under the new structure when that happens.
Yes, sir.
That's
Robert, would you like to add anything?
I'm just very hopeful for that class and comp study like everybody else. Our road crews are very hard workers, and we're getting to the point where perhaps a career in McDonald's is almost going to be better than being out there in the sun for what they're making. So that has to be corrected. Oh, everybody else has that hope too. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment on the Public Works budget?
And online.
All right, moving on to the 42% of our budget, Sheriff's Office. Any questions on that? Madam Undersheriff, would you like to add anything? Oh, sorry.
No, I just want to reiterate exactly what Robert just said. I think this administrative office is doing a really good job, and the department heads are focusing on not just balancing the budget, but doing everything we can, reviewing the budget to actuals. You know, although this is a status quo budget with inflation, with the increased employee costs, it's a cut to our budget. We are reviewing. We did reduce some things. There are a number of positions that we are agreeing to freeze or continue to freeze. That we gave up. We eliminated positions over the last year to accomplish some of the raises. And I think all the department heads want to stress the importance of the class and comp study and accomplishing it. And we're all reviewing on what we're willing to concede in order to accomplish that for employees. And we hope that remains the focus.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Does the sheriff like to make a comment?
No, I think that Rochelle said it all. And she's a lot easier to look at than my pretty face, so I'm good.
Okay. Any other?
So, Chair, I would like to piggyback on some of the undersheriff's comments. I'd like to thank the department heads in this county. Their commitment to their staff is amazing. They all came forward. They all really scrubbed through this budget. It did start out as a status quo budget. They have worked really hard to make sure that we're keeping our costs in check so that we can afford to go forward with something on the class and comp study. So I just like to thank all of our department heads for their hard work, especially through this budget process. They've been incredible to work with.
I would echo that. And when I look at the conflicts between sheriff's departments and other counties and their board, we are very fortunate to have such a great working relationship. Special districts. Anybody got any questions? Any comments? Public comments? Anything online?
I had a quick question.
Martin.
I forgot to ask you, Marcos, the Murphy's Oaks. I was unaware of that. It went from something like 29 to, I think it went up 60. It's. Let me give you the page number. Hang on. So if you're on page 77. Sorry, the department requested 29,731 and the CEO recommendation is 83,609. I just was curious what that was.
It was an adjustment in the appropriation for contingency.
Thank you.
The light doesn't turn.
It was an adjustment in the appropriations for contingencies for Murphy's Oaks, so it was just fund balance.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions on special districts? Supervisor Stopper?
The CSAs are special districts.
Yes.
So the question is, are we on schedule for the paving of CSA 1 this year? Okay. I gotta get back to it and double check here. Because last year we just had a line discrepancy. It was there. I believe Mark brought it back with final budget and had it fixed. I need to look at it real quick. What page was that CSA 1 on real quick? CSA 9, CSA 1 Rancho, 2110. Contingencies, okay. So we're. Yeah, it's right in line, I guess. 2023 final requested. And where's the revenue line? I'm just having troubles seeing it right now. So 601, correct? All right, you got there. That's the expense, okay. So the revenue side of it, I just want to make sure that it's roughly. 605. Thank you, Sarah. Hey, county council's good for more than just law. More than law. Okay. We're good. Thank you. Just want to make sure that we're on schedule.
Yes.
Thank you, Robert.
Any public comment regarding special districts? Anything online?
None online.
All right, treasurer, tax collector. Questions on our budget? Anyone? Any public comment on this budget? All right. Debt. Anybody have any questions about our debt? Any public comment? All right. I want to thank my fellow board members for doing so much of their homework in advance. You guys, thank you. It's pretty outstanding. And thank you for staff for this. So I don't think this is going to be real complex to sum up what we've got here. With these changes that are in front of us regarding TOT and PG&E, I guess I'd ask for a motion to approve. Is that correct? Is that where we're at?
If I'm not mistaken, today was just to do the presentation and get direction, and then the CEO's office is planning on bringing back the actual recommended budget for approval at next meeting. Is that correct?
Correct. So we do have, for next meeting, we're going to come back with the finalized position list that comes before the board, along with all the other things that need to be approved. I do have one question for you on the Parks and Recs. Did you want that in contingency? So if we decide to do something with that money, that it needs to come back to the board, or do you want it in the operating budget? So as something comes up, we have the ability to spend it.
I think obviously my suggestion, if there's a capital thing or we're going to build something, but I think, I think it's going into that, but I would suggest that it go into budget and not be left in flex. Obviously, we could take that out in September if we chose to.
I'm in favor of the operating budget, and because any capital thing, expenditure would have to be approved by the board moving forward. And, we aren't doing anything as such until after September at this point. So if you ask for anything in your district again, Jack, right now, I'm saying no.
I was thinking, no. Not. Is that it? Do we answer all your questions, Marcos?
And then would you like to see these changes coming back in June in 2 weeks, or did you want to see these changes at final budget? That's
why we're not seeing in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. Perfect.
Reason not to. Okay. So is everybody in consensus?
We all agree with that?
I don't know. Do we all agree with that? Ask me. I asked. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Denise, for all your comments. You did a wonderful job.
And
I thought you were going to read back all the.
I do want to thank all the department
I
heads
want your
for the
brain
work
for
they did to
numbers.
get it to this
Okay.
point.
You guys are
As
amazing. Thank
Teresa
you.
did bring up earlier. It's, it's been phenomenal.
All right, we'll move on to supervisor announcements.
In compliance with Government Code 53232.3D, board members shall provide brief reports on any meetings attended at the expense of the local agency and may make other announcements or report out.
All right. Martin, I think you've got a couple items.
I do. I attended the Area 12 Agency on Aging meeting and have subsequently spent several meetings dealing with the closing of common grounds. I attended the CMCAA board meeting in Mariposa, which was the first time, I think, since before COVID that everybody got to meet in person, which was wonderful. Of course, I'm going to put in the plug for Spartan, but I also wanted to ask the board, our next meeting in 2 weeks, there's actually a Special Olympics torch run that's being put together with the Calaveras champions. And I was going to ask if it was possible, first of all, if you wanted to join in, but secondly, if it would be possible to start our meeting at 10, so it'd give people time to get to Pardee Reservoir to do it and be back in time for the meeting.
Is there anybody who's opposed to starting our next meeting at 10 a.m. in order to facilitate participation in Special Olympics?
I'm not opposed. I just want to make sure that, us all attending that.
Good point. I think that,
As long as we aren't discussing business.
yes, it's a public event, correct? That,
And he'll run faster than the rest of us, so we're not going to be together. Right?
Yes, I think that, it's open to the public, as long as no county business is discussed. I think it's probably okay.
All right, so is everybody okay with the 10 o'clock start next meeting?
Thank you. Thank you.
And I encourage everybody to sign up and support Special Olympics. It's a great cause. You could be the hugger at the end. I want to also add, it's just because we discussed this earlier, Peter said we're going to have a special meeting on July 16th for the Title 17. Moving down the road, Supervisor Stopper, what's you next? Have anything you want to? No. Oh, changing it up.
I guess I'll run. Yeah, put a couple deputies and the DA behind me, I'll go faster. That's all.
Thank you. Supervisor Stoppenell.
I have nothing to report.
Supervisor Follendorf.
Last week I attended the COG meeting with Supervisor Stopper. It was pretty routine. There was some I'm trying to think, we're on track with the Valley Springs school project. And the city was awarded money to close up their Murphy's grade project, and hopefully that'll finally wrap up this year. That's been ongoing for quite a number of years. And other than that, there wasn't anything that was that sparked any other interest. And then I attended a meeting with Martin yesterday related to Common Ground, and it just wasn't county, it was all of the organizations across the county coming together to resolve some of the issues with Common Ground is closing at the end of this month. That's all I have.
Thank you. There's nothing I'm required to report. Anything else, Madam CEO or County Council? Anybody in the room, Madam Clerk?
No.
All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you.